illegally.
You could get him back. There's a phone on this desk.
I could.
You could pick it up, and with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now.
And if he were the gentleman that you say he is, I would do that.
Well, it finally happened. Donald Trump said he could free Kilmar Garcia from El Salvador if he wanted to, but I'm not going to. Not only that, Donald Trump actually said Kilmar Garcia was involved with MS-13. Did you not see his knuckles?
No. He had MS, as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because it's fake news.
Now, to be honest with you, even Trump supporters were confused and saying, Donald Trump, MS-13 is not written on Kilmar Obrego's knuckles. What are you talking about? You'll see how Donald Trump managed to troll the entire media and get everyone focusing on Kilmar Garcia and focusing on MS-13. We'll dig into it.
Kilmar Garcia. He's the Salvadoran man who crossed into this country illegally, but who is under a protective order that he not be sent back to El Salvador. Your government sent him back to El Salvador and acknowledged in court that was a mistake. And now the Supreme Court has upheld an order that you must return him facilitate his return to the United States. What are you doing to comply?
Well, the lawyer that said it was a mistake was here a long time, was not appointed by us, should not have said that, and just so you understand, the person that you're talking about, you're making this person sound, this is a MS-13 gang member, a tough cookie, been in lots of skirmishes, beat the hell out of his wife, and the wife was petrified to even talk about him, okay? This is not an innocent, wonderful gentleman from Maryland.
I'm not saying he's a good guy. It's about the rule of law. The order from the Supreme Court stands, sir.
He came into our country illegally.
You could get him back. There's a phone on this desk.
I could.
You could pick it up, and with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now.
And if he were the gentleman that you say he is, I would do that.
Now here's where things get very interesting. I'm sure you have not heard about this court document. Well, this court document actually highlights how Kilmar Garcia was involved with gang activity. Now it's a little confusing, let me explain this. This court document, it reveals the ex-husband of Kilmar Garcia's girlfriend filed an emergency custody petition claiming his children are in serious danger after their mother started dating the alleged MS-13 gang member. Check out what he has to say. She tried to kill myself and put my kids with a man that can't take care of them. I'm afraid of my kids' lives are in the gang because she's dating a gang member. Again, I'm afraid of my kids' lives are in the gang because she's dating a gang member. The father further claims, I was there and the police was there too. Now, she did respond and said, go to the court, can't give you that custody of the kids because that woman told me. Again, I know the English is a little broken, but this does tie directly to Kilmar Garcia.
And you'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. So let me
That was Photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay.
Now, look, if you don't know what happened and you don't realize how impressive that was for Donald Trump, we will dig into it because there's a lot of controversy surrounding the knuckles and what Donald Trump said. But first, we have the best sponsor ever because of you guys. Alright, this video is sponsored by 1775 Coffee Company. Look, you come here because you're tired of the spin, the media lies, the double standards, the fake outrage. So why would you start your day with coffee made by the same corporations pushing that agenda? Well, 1775's Rejuvenate Coffee is a bold, dark roast infused with CAG, a compound studied for its potential to reduce inflammation and support healthier aging at the cellular level. As we get older, CAG levels drop, and with it, recovery, energy, and stamina. This helps put it back where it belongs. Now look, do you want focus without the crash? Their mushroom coffee is stacked with 5 functional mushrooms, including lion's mane and cordyceps, to support mental clarity, clean energy, and immune strength. It's single origin, mold-free, toxin-free, and roasted weekly in Miami. No corporate filters, no ESG garbage, just bold coffee that backs the Constitution, not compliance, and supports freedom, truth, and the people who still give a damn. So, head over to 1775coffee.com, use code T-SPLY, T-S-P-L-Y, like you see on the screen, and get 15% off. I will also put the link in my description. So start your morning with coffee that stands for truth, freedom, and the country you believe in.
Because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
Right, we'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture. We'll
and you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't there, but they're there now, right?
No,
but they're
there in
now.
your picture.
Terry.
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look at that.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
Alright, I'm going to be honest with you. Initially, I did fall for this. I was even like, Donald Trump, what are you talking about? This is Photoshop. However, when you go back and listen to what Donald Trump was actually saying, he is literally talking about the knuckles, literally talking about the tattoo, and literally talking about Kilmar Garcia. What the man who is interviewing Donald Trump is trying to say, he is referring to the Photoshop picture of MS-13 when that was supposed to be a visual from the Trump administration. So as you can see, Donald Trump now forced everybody to re-look up the picture, re-look up the tattoo, and you'll notice way more people are actually saying, no, it does say MS-13 on the knuckles of Kilmar Garcia. Donald Trump was not referring to the Photoshop version.
Do you think we can give 21 million trials? Let's say each trial takes 2 weeks. Is that what you want us to do?
The law is the law, sir. The law is the law, and you are
the law
sworn
doesn't
to
say anything
uphold it.
about trials.
No, not trials, hearings. I said
These
hearings.
people came in, they're not citizens. They came in illegally. They came into our country illegally. We have to get them out.
There's a legal process for that.
And we follow the legal process. I can't have a trial, a major trial for every person that came in illegally. We have thousands of murders that came in. They're going to murder people. They already have murdered people in our country.
Right, so
we have to get them out, and we have to get them out fast.
Really bad guys, but in our country, even bad guys get due process, right?
If people come into our country illegally, there's a different standard. These are illegal. They came in illegally.
But they get due process.
Well, they get a process where we have to get them out.
Now look, I'm sure you are all aware this is the #1 critique from Democrats. I mean, you have judges throughout America who are trying to halt flights, trying to facilitate deals with other countries in the world to release prisoners. However, this is why Donald Trump, the Trump administration, had to initiate the Alien Enemies Act to expedite kicking people out of the country who were tied to gang activity and tied to terror activity. Actually, Donald Trump did just talk about this during a rally or a speech where he talks about the Alien Enemies Act. Check this out.
And just this month, 2 Venezuelan members of TDA, Nicaragua, were arrested in Washington state for kidnapping a 58-year-old woman driving a power drill through her hand to extort her bank account information, shooting her, leaving her for dead. And miraculously, she just survived, but she's not feeling so well. In January, Nicaragua member in Chicago kidnapped 3 women, took them in an alley, lined them up, and shot them each in the head. They all died. And the FBI recently assessed that these vicious gangs have been sent by the foreign regime in Venezuela to foment violence and instability in the United States of America. Can't let that happen. And it's not just, in all fairness, not Venezuela. It's all over the world. It's all over. They come in from the Congo. They come in from Africa. The Congo, they've emptied out their prisons into our country. But they come from Africa, Asia, South America. They come from all over bad parts of Europe. That's why we've invoked the Alien Enemies Act to expel every foreign terrorist from our soil as quickly as possible.
Now, I am going to be a little critical of the Trump administration. I don't think they are doing a good enough job of actually conveying the facts of terror members coming from South America. This is because we all grew up in an America where terror members come from a certain part of the world. Maybe they come from the Middle East. Maybe they look a certain kind of way. Maybe they talk a certain kind of way. Maybe they are of a certain religion. But at the end of the day, none of that matters. A terror member can be from any part of the world. They can be of any religion. They can be anything. However, we all know this. We grew up in the post 9/11 era where we think terror members look a certain way. However, the Trump administration needs to convey the facts are the facts. We have had more disruption from members coming from South America than we have from the Middle East directly on American civilians. That's just a simple fact. You can go look into this. I understand it's a very, very harsh term to call a organization a terror member because it puts them in a new category, and that can be a very violent thing. But this is what the Trump administration really is failing to do. Not only are these gang members terror members, but they really need to up the ante when it comes to the messaging and tell everybody what exactly is going on and why are we classifying them as terror members.
Nowhere has this transformation been more dramatic than our southern border. You have seen a change on your southern border that Sleepy Joe said couldn't happen. Sleepy Joe, the worst president in history, said it couldn't happen. The last administration engineered a massive border invasion, allowing gangs, cartels, and terrorists to infiltrate our communities and murder our citizens, and that is being nice about it. That's actually being nice about it. They are the worst. But standing before you today, I can proudly report that this heinous betrayal is over and that we have achieved the most secure border in American history by far. In American history. For 2 months in a row, we have now set all-time records, and this is by the media, the fake news media, which most of it is fake. We've set all-time records for the lowest number of illegal border crossings ever recorded. Think of that, ever recorded.
I mean, the data is actually staggering. Some numbers are like down to 3 a day, which is mind-boggling. Now, I do want to circle back to a topic when it comes to the tattoos. A massive argument that Democrats seem to have is that, look, tattoos are not that big of a deal. We don't actually classify people when it comes to tattoos. How could Kilmar Garcia be tied to MS-13? However, here's a very interesting segment from CNN themselves when it comes to tattoos.
Why do you think President Trump was so fixated on demonstrating that tattoo on Abrego Garcia's knuckles, purportedly, according to ABC and others, photoshopped? Why was he so intent on proving it was not?
Because the administration, it follows in this overall strategy where the administration has tried to turn this from a legal argument to an immigration argument by continuing to accuse Mr. Abrego Garcia of being a member of MS-13. The evidence that the government and law enforcement relied on for that has been the subject of scrutiny from a federal judge. It relies on an informant. It also overall relies on these tattoos. The president previously posted on social media a photo of Mr. Abrego Garcia's knuckles, and it had symbols on his knuckles and appeared to also then have a sort of translation on it. Now, while some say that those symbols are representative of MS-13, we have talked to many law enforcement experts that have said that tattoos solely are not enough to justify identifying somebody as being a member of a gang. That being said, the scorecard that ICE uses, that we've obtained, actually puts a lot of points on whether or not somebody has tattoos, as well as their choice of clothing and other ICE work as well.
So there you go. I'm actually kind of impressed with Donald Trump to be able to retain all of the information, specifically about Kilmar Garcia. Again, we live in this bubble where we think the Trump administration, they're thinking about him every single day. There are very violent people being deported every single day, and those are very big wins for the Trump administration. Kilmar Garcia is like a drop in the bucket for the administration. They don't even look like they're really thinking about him that much. They have acknowledged what's going on. I know there's a court order, but Democrats, they just keep honing in, specifically talking about Kilmar Garcia, but also using him to try and talk about other illegal immigrants that have been deported. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. I really appreciate it. God bless, and we'll see you all later.